I rushed into the department meeting 15 minutes late, my heart pounding against my ribs. Traffic had been terrible, and I'd spilled coffee on my shirt that morning, forcing me to change into the only clean thing I had left, a thrifted gray blazer I'd bought for $12 at a consignment shop. The conference room fell silent as I slipped through the door. 15 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Troy, my direct supervisor, stopped mid-sentence and looked me up and down with an expression of theatrical disgust. "Well, well," he said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. "Nice of you to join us, Marla. Is that blazer from your grandmother's funeral? Or did you rob a Goodwill?" Laughter rippled through the room. Some people looked uncomfortable, but most joined in. Troy's joke. Troy's approval. Nobody wanted to be on his bad side. I felt my face burn hot, but I kept my expression neutral. Apologies for being late. Traffic on the interstate. The door opened behind me. Eleanor Brooks, our company CEO, walked in. The laughter died instantly. Eleanor's eyes swept the room, then locked onto mine. "Marla," she said crisply, "I need your signature. Now." 2 months earlier everything had been different. I'd been working late, finishing a market analysis report that Troy would present to the board the next day. He always presented my work, always took the credit. I'd printed the final copy and was heading to the elevator when Eleanor appeared from the executive floor. She'd stopped, looked at the document in my hands and asked, "Is that the competitive analysis for tomorrow's board meeting?" "Yes, ma'am." "For Troy's presentation." "Troy's presentation." Her tone was neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "Walk with me." We'd gone to her office. She'd read my report carefully, asking pointed questions about methodology and conclusions. Questions that showed she actually understood the work. "This is excellent," she'd said finally. "Who wrote it?" "I did, ma'am." "And Troy will present it?" "Yes, ma'am. That's how it works in our department." Eleanor had studied me for a long moment. "How would you feel about consulting on a confidential project? Something that stays between us. You'd continue your regular work, but I'd need your strategic input on a company restructuring initiative." She'd slid an NDA across her desk. "This stays quiet. Can I trust you?" I'd signed without hesitation. Back in the present, Troy stared at Eleanor with visible confusion. The entire room held its breath. "Your signature," Troy repeated. "Eleanor, I'm not sure what." "I wasn't asking you." Eleanor didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on me. "Marla, we need to finalize the restructuring proposal. The board meeting is in an hour." I pulled the folder from my bag, the one I'd been working on for 2 months under Eleanor's direct supervision. Our secret project. Comprehensive analysis of departmental efficiency, leadership gaps, and strategic realignment. I signed the authorization page and handed it to Eleanor. "Thank you," she said. "I'll see you at the presentation." She left without another word. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The silence in the room was suffocating. Troy's face had gone from confused to something darker. Everyone else looked between us, trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. "What the hell was that about?" Troy demanded. I gathered my things calmly. "Just doing my job." After the meeting, I returned to my desk to find whispers already spreading. People avoided eye contact. The office grapevine was working overtime trying to make sense of what had happened. Troy cornered me in the break room. His usual smooth charm was gone, replaced by barely controlled anger. "What's going on, Marla? Why is Eleanor treating you like you're some kind of consultant?" "I am consulting. On a project." "What project?" "I'm your supervisor. I should know about any projects you're working on." "Not this one." His jaw clenched. "You're playing a dangerous game. Remember who signs your performance reviews." I poured my coffee slowly, deliberately. "I remember exactly who signs what." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Whatever you think you're doing, it won't end well for you. Eleanor doesn't actually care about you. You're just a pawn." Before I could respond, a junior analyst named Kevin approached nervously. He glanced at Troy, then at me. "Marla, can I talk to you? Privately?" Troy stormed off. Kevin waited until he was gone, then pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "You didn't get this from me. But you should see what's on here. They've been removing your name from project files. Systematically." I'd barely processed Kevin's revelation when my personal phone buzzed. A number I hadn't seen in 2 years appeared on screen. "My ex-husband, Dean. We need to talk," his text read. "It's about your boss. I'm in the lobby." Dean looked older, more worn than I remembered. We sat in the building's coffee shop, and he got straight to the point. "I'm consulting for Allied Systems. They're partnering with your company on the Henderson project." He stirred his coffee absently. Troy's name came up in our due diligence. I recognized him from years ago. "You know Troy. We worked together. Briefly. Before you and I met." Dean's expression darkened. "There was an incident. Lawsuit. Vendor fraud. Troy and another guy were funneling money through fake contractors. The company settled quietly, and both of them resigned." My stomach dropped. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw how he was acting in the partnership meetings. That same arrogance. That same pattern." He leaned forward. "He's not just mocking you, Marla. He's covering something. And if you're getting close to whatever it is, you need to be careful." I went home that night and opened Kevin's USB drive. What I found made my blood run cold. 17 projects. 17 separate instances over the past 3 years where my contributions had been systematically removed from files and reassigned to Troy or members of his inner circle. The evidence was meticulous. Original drafts with my name in metadata. Final versions with my name scrubbed clean. Email chains where my analysis had been copied word for word into Troy's reports. I'd known he was taking credit, but seeing it laid out so systematically, so deliberately was different. This wasn't just ego or laziness. This was calculated theft. I compiled everything into a document and sent it to HR the next morning with a formal complaint. The response came within an hour. Not from HR's general email, but from the director herself, Vanessa Pierce. "Marla, thank you for bringing this to my attention. However, these are serious allegations that require careful review. I'd advise you to be cautious about making claims that could damage professional relationships without concrete proof." Concrete proof. I just sent her 17 documented instances. Then Kevin sent me a link. Vanessa's Instagram. Recent photos of her and Troy at restaurants, concerts, a weekend trip to wine country. They were dating. 2 days later, I was called into an unscheduled performance review. Troy sat on one side of the table with Vanessa. I sat alone on the other. "Marla, we've received concerning feedback about your recent behavior," Vanessa began, reading from notes. "Multiple colleagues have reported that you're being disruptive, questioning established processes, making unfounded accusations." Unfounded. Kept my voice level. "I provided documentation." "What you provided," Troy interrupted, "was a conspiracy theory based on your inability to accept that other people contribute to projects too. You're not the only talented person in this department." "I never said I was. I said my work is being stolen and reassigned." Vanessa slid a document across the table. "This is a performance improvement plan. You'll have 90 days to demonstrate better team collaboration and professional conduct. We need you to sign acknowledging receipt." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down discreetly. Eleanor's text was brief. "Do not sign anything. I'm watching." I looked up at them. "I need to review this with legal counsel before signing." Troy's smile was cold. "That's your right. But refusing to sign will be noted in your file." I went straight to Eleanor's office after the meeting. Her assistant waved me through immediately. "Tell me everything," Eleanor said, closing the door. I laid out what I'd found. The credit theft. The vendor anomalies I'd started noticing while working on her restructuring project. Troy's past. Vanessa's relationship with him. Eleanor listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. I suspected something was wrong in that department. That's partly why I brought you in on the restructuring analysis. I needed someone on the inside who wasn't part of whatever was happening. What do you want me to do? Keep documenting. Keep your head down. She opened a drawer and pulled out an authorization form. This gives you access to departmental financial records. High-level access that Troy doesn't know you have. If there's something there, find it. Won't that raise red flags? Not if you're careful. The access will show as coming from a board-authorized audit review. No names attached. She met my eyes. But Marla, if you do this, you need to be absolutely certain. 'Cause when we move hard. There's no halfway. I thought about Troy's smirk. About 17 stolen projects. About being called disruptive for telling the truth. I'm certain. The break came from an unexpected source. A woman named Nancy contacted me through LinkedIn. Former accountant for our company. Retired 3 years ago. I heard through the grapevine that you were asking questions about department finances. Her message read. I used to ask those same questions. They didn't like it. Let's talk. We met at a diner far from the office. Nancy was in her 60s, sharp-eyed and direct. I questioned vendor payments in Troy's department for 2 years before I retired, she said. Small amounts. 5,000 here. 7,000 there. Always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic review. Did you find anything? I found a vendor that didn't seem to exist. No website. No business registration I could verify. Just invoices and payments. She slid a manila envelope across the table. I kept copies of everything I flagged. They told me to drop it. That I was causing problems. 6 months later, they offered me early retirement with a generous package. They paid you to go away. They paid me to stop asking questions. She tapped the envelope. This is everything I found. Everything they didn't want me to find. Use it better than I did. Nancy's files were explosive. The vendor she'd questioned, Sterling Solutions LLC, had received over $300,000 in the past 4 years. For consulting services that were never clearly defined. I cross-referenced the business registration. Sterling Solutions was registered to a Kyle Hendricks. The address was a UPS store. I ran Kyle Hendricks through every database I could access legally. Found him on social media. His profile was sparse, but one detail jumped out. He'd tagged Troy in a family reunion photo 2 years ago. Caption. Great seeing my favorite cousin. Sterling Solutions was a shell company. Troy's cousin's shell company. Funneling money for services that were never actually provided. I was compiling the evidence when an email arrived. Sender. Anonymous. Object. Stop. Stop digging. You won't like what you find next. This is your only warning. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I forwarded it to Eleanor with a note. They're getting nervous. That means we're close. I started taking precautions. Backing up files to multiple locations. Documenting everything with timestamps. Telling a trusted friend outside the company what I was investigating. But apparently it wasn't enough. I returned from lunch one day to find my desk clearly disturbed. Files that had been stacked neatly were now askew. Drawers that I'd left closed were partially open. Nothing was missing. But someone had definitely been searching. The message was clear. We can get to you whenever we want. I was photographing the evidence of tampering when I noticed something on my monitor. A yellow post-it note stuck to the screen. 5 words in black marker. They'll never believe you. My hands shook as I peeled it off. The handwriting was deliberate, printed carefully to be untraceable. But the threat was unmistakable. I took photos of everything and sent them to Eleanor. Then I went to find the one person who might have seen something. Luis, the evening janitor, was emptying trash cans on our floor. I chatted with him occasionally, and he'd always been friendly. "Luis, did you see anyone at my desk this morning? Before I got in?" He glanced around nervously. "I see a lot of things. People think janitors are invisible. What did you see?" He pulled me into an empty conference room and lowered his voice. "I've been working here 9 years," Luis said. "I clean after hours. I hear things. People have loud conversations when they think nobody's listening." "Like what?" "Like Troy and that woman from HR. They talk about you a lot. About how you're becoming a problem." He hesitated. "Last week I heard Troy on his phone. He was talking about making sure certain documents don't exist anymore. About having someone clean things up." "Did he say what documents?" "No. But I started paying attention to what gets shredded." He pulled out his phone and showed me photos. Stacks of financial records in the shredding bins. "These show up every Thursday night. By clockwork. Someone prints them, then immediately shreds them." I looked at the photos. They were partial shots, but I could make out enough. Payment authorizations. Vendor invoices. All signed by Troy. "Can you get me better pictures?" "Already did." He showed me a folder on his phone. Dozens of high-resolution images. "I don't know what these mean. But I know people don't usually print things just to shred them immediately unless they don't want anyone else seeing them." I could have hugged him. "Thank you. This is incredibly helpful." "Just be careful," he said. "People who cross Troy don't usually last long around here." The personal blow came from an unexpected direction. I visited my sister Amy that weekend for our usual Sunday dinner. Her daughter Kayla, my 22-year-old niece, was there. "Oh, Aunt Marla," Kayla said brightly. "I have news. I got a job at your company. I start Monday in the operations department." My stomach sank. Operations. That's Troy's department. Yeah, he was so nice during the interview. He said the department was going through some changes, and they needed fresh energy. He paused. "He also mentioned you might not be around much longer. That you were having some difficulties." Amy looked concerned. "Marla, what's going on? Are you in trouble at work?" "No. But Troy is spreading rumors." Kayla frowned. "He didn't make it sound like rumors. He seemed genuinely concerned about you. Said you'd been acting paranoid lately. Making accusations that weren't true. And you believed him." "Well, why wouldn't I?" She looked uncomfortable. "I mean, he's a department head. He seemed really credible." I realized what Troy was doing. Poisoning the well. Making sure that when things came to light, he'd already established a narrative that I was unstable, unreliable, a disgruntled employee with an agenda. "Just be careful, Kayla. And pay attention to how things work in that department. You might see some things that don't seem right. Aunt Marla, maybe you should talk to someone about the stress. Troy mentioned there are counseling resources." I left before I said something I'd regret. The trap came disguised as an olive branch. Troy invited me to lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. Just the two of us. "I think we got off on the wrong foot," he said once we were seated. His smile was practiced, warm. Completely fake. "I want to clear the air." "That's generous of you. I've been thinking about the structure of our department. You're talented, Marla. I haven't always done a good job of recognizing that." He leaned forward. "How would you feel about a promotion? Senior analyst position. Your own small team. A significant raise." Sounded perfect, which meant it was anything but. What would the role entail? Strategic projects. High-level analysis. You'd work more independently, less integrated with the main team. He watched my reaction carefully. "It would give you the autonomy you've been wanting." Autonomy. Isolation. A position where I'd be separated from the information flows. Where I couldn't see what was happening in the department's day-to-day operations. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully. "But I'm happy in my current role." His smile tightened. "This is a limited-time opportunity, Marla. I'd hate for you to miss out because you're being stubborn. I'll think about it. He leaned in closer, dropping his voice. No, you won't. You'll decline. 'Cause you think you're smarter than me. You think you're building some kind of case. His eyes were cold. You're making a mistake. A career-ending mistake. The next morning everything changed. A company-wide email announced that Eleanor Brooks was taking a temporary leave of absence for personal reasons. Interim CEO responsibilities would be handled by the CFO. No explanation. No timeline. Just sudden absence. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Emailed. No response. Her assistant said she was unavailable and couldn't say when she'd be back. Panic set in. Eleanor had been my only protection. Without her I was exposed. Then an internal email leaked to me through Kevin. Not meant for general distribution. A memo from the board to senior leadership. CEO Eleanor Brooks has been placed on administrative leave pending review of certain operational decisions. All matters related to departmental restructuring initiatives are suspended until further notice. They'd shut her down. Whatever investigation she'd been running, whatever restructuring she'd been planning, it was over. Or so they thought. I spent a weekend organizing everything I had. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence of Troy's vendor fraud, credit theft, and manipulation. I built a timeline spanning 4 years, showing the pattern clearly and undeniably. Monday morning, I sealed it all in an envelope and walked into the legal department. The senior counsel, a woman named Beatrice Hoffman, listened to my summary without interrupting. When I finished, she opened the envelope and began reviewing the contents. This is serious, she said finally. You understand that by filing this formally, there will be consequences? Not just for Troy, but potentially for you as well. I understand. They'll retaliate. Make your life difficult. Maybe impossible. They're already doing that. She studied me for a long moment. Okay. I'll need 48 hours to review everything. Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't discuss it with colleagues. Go to work. Do your job. Act normal. And then we'll see if there's enough here to move forward. I left her office feeling lighter. Done it. Made the formal report. Whatever happened next, at least I'd stood up. That feeling lasted exactly 16 hours. The next morning my keycard wouldn't work. I tried 3 times at the building entrance before security approached. Ma'am, your access has been restricted. You'll need to speak with HR. I called Vanessa. Got voicemail. Called again. Nothing. Finally her assistant called back. Ms. Pierce asked me to inform you that you've been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. You should not attempt to access company property or contact company employees. Investigation of what? I wasn't given details. You'll receive a formal notice by courier. The envelope arrived at my apartment that afternoon. Ominous. Inside was a letter from the company's law firm. I was being sued for breach of confidentiality, for accessing files without authorization, for making false accusations that damaged reputations, for violating my employment agreement. They were coming at me with everything, trying to bury me in legal action before my complaint against Troy could gain traction. I sat on my couch, staring at the lawsuit, feeling the walls close in. I'd known there would be retaliation. But this was overwhelming. Coordinated. Brutal. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Marla, it's Eleanor. Relief flooded through me. Where have you been? Everyone said. I know what they said. I let them think I was gone. Her voice was calm, steady. I needed to smoke out the people blocking the investigation. Make them comfortable. Let them think they'd won. Did it work? Perfectly. They got careless. Started covering things up more obviously. Making mistakes. Pause. Your complaint reached the board, Marla. The Real board, not just the people Troy has in his pocket. They're watching everything now. They're suing me. I know. That lawsuit won't go anywhere. It's desperation. But you need to hang on a little longer. Can you do that? I thought about the post-it note, the search desk, the systematic destruction of my reputation. How much longer? 2 weeks. Maybe less. We're in the final phase. The board has authorized a full forensic audit. They've brought in external investigators. People Troy can't control or intimidate. What do you need from me? Keep documenting. Stay smart. And trust that this ends soon. A pause. And Marla, thank you for being brave enough to do the right thing when everyone else was looking away. A week later, I received an unexpected email from HR. Not Vanessa, a different administrator. Effective immediately, your administrative leave is being modified to project consultant status. You are authorized to return to the office for a specific assignment. Report to conference room 4B Monday at 9 a.m. Troy Saunders will be your project supervisor. Made no sense. Why reinstate me under Troy's supervision after everything that had happened? Then I got a second email. This one from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, Board Investigator. Ms. Wade, your reinstatement has been carefully orchestrated. Troy does not know the full scope of what's happening. You will be placed in situations where his behavior and statements will be documented. Record everything. He's going to bury himself. I read the email 3 times. This was a setup. A controlled environment where Troy would think he was in charge, while actually being monitored by people he couldn't see. Monday morning I returned to the office. Troy greeted me with his usual false warmth. Welcome back, Marla. Glad we could work through that misunderstanding. Let's move forward professionally, shall we? Smiled. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. What he didn't know was that I was wearing a recording device. And that every conversation would be documented. The first meeting was routine. Project planning. Troy explaining expectations. But then Vanessa joined us, and the tone shifted. We need to discuss vendor relationships, Troy said, pulling up a spreadsheet. There's been some concern about transparency. We need to make sure all our contractors are properly documented. Like Sterling Solutions. I asked innocently. The room went silent. Troy's expression flickered. Yes, like Sterling. They've been a valuable partner. All their work is properly documented. And properly authorized. With legitimate business purposes. Of course. His voice had an edge now. Why would you ask that? Just clarifying. Since the audit is reviewing all vendor relationships. Vanessa jumped in. There's no audit. Where did you hear that? I just smiled. Must have misunderstood. Over the next week, I watched Troy become increasingly paranoid. He held closed-door meetings, made phone calls in hushed voices, started deleting emails and files more frequently. And I recorded everything. Every conversation where he instructed people to alter records. Every discussion about making sure certain information stayed buried. Every moment where his careful facade cracked. The final piece came during a team meeting. Troy was explaining how to handle compliance paperwork. How to word things to satisfy requirements while protecting operational flexibility. We've been doing this for years, he said confidently. Trust me, they'll never touch us. We're too valuable to the company. I had it on recording. Clear. Undeniable. 2 days later, the audio was submitted to legal, the ethics department, and directly to the board. I didn't send it myself. The investigator did. But I knew the moment it landed because everything changed. Vanessa was placed on immediate administrative leave. Her office was sealed. Security escorted her out within an hour. Troy didn't know yet. He was at lunch when it happened. I watched him return, completely oblivious, chatting with colleagues. Then his phone rang. He stepped into an empty conference room to take the call. Through the glass walls, I watched his face drain of color. Watched him sit down heavily. Watched his carefully constructed confidence crumble. He came out 10 minutes later ashen. Didn't look at anyone. Just walked straight to his office and closed the door. Kevin appeared at my desk. Did you see Troy? He looks like he's seen a ghost. Must have been bad news. Serves him right, Kevin said quietly. Everyone knows something's coming. The whole department can feel it. The invitation came the next morning. Calendar request for a private boardroom session. 3 attendees. Me, Troy, and the full executive board. Subject line: Restructuring strategy review and response to internal investigation findings. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at 2 o'clock. Final review before implementation. The email included a note from the board secretary. Ms. Wade, the board requests that you present your findings regarding departmental operations before Mr. Saunders provides his response. Please prepare a comprehensive summary. I had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to organize 4 years of evidence into a presentation that would end Troy's career and vindicate everything I'd been saying. I worked around the clock, built a timeline, created exhibits, documented every instance of fraud, theft, and manipulation, made it undeniable. Eleanor called Thursday night. Are you ready? I think so. Remember, stick to facts. Let the evidence speak. Don't let him goad you into emotion. What happens after? Justice. Finally. Friday at 2 I walked into the boardroom. 12 board members sat along the sides. Eleanor was there, back from her leave. Troy sat at one end of the table, his lawyer beside him. I sat at the other end, alone, but not afraid. The board chairman opened the meeting. Ms. Wade, you have the floor. I pulled up my presentation. 43 slides. Every one backed by documentation. I walked them through it all. The vendor fraud. Sterling Solutions and the $300,000. The 17 projects where my work had been stolen. The pattern of retaliation. The falsified records. The attempted cover-ups. I played the recordings. Troy's voice explaining how to fake compliance. How to divert funds. How they'd been doing it for years and would never get caught. With each piece of evidence, Troy's face grew paler. His lawyer took notes frantically. But what was there to defend? Had everything. When I finished, the room was silent. The board chairman looked at Troy. Mr. Saunders, do you have a response? Troy opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his lawyer, who just shook his head. Eleanor stood. Based on these findings corroborated by our independent forensic audit, I am exercising my authority as CEO. Troy Saunders, you are hereby terminated for cause. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You will be hearing from our legal department regarding restitution. Troy tried to speak. No words came out. Security appeared at the door. After Troy was escorted out, the board chairman turned to me. Ms. Wade, on behalf of the board, I want to apologize. Your complaints should have been taken seriously from the beginning. The failure to protect you represents a serious breakdown in our systems. Eleanor added, which is why we're making structural changes. We'd like to offer you Troy's position. Department head. Immediate appointment. I'd imagined this moment. The vindication. The victory. But now that it was here, I realized I wanted something different. I'm flattered, I said. But I want something better. Not Troy's old job. Something new. They looked surprised. What did you have in mind? Head of Ethics and Leadership Integrity. New position. Reporting directly to the CEO and the board. Responsible for creating systems that prevent what happened to me from happening to anyone else. Real oversight. Real accountability. Eleanor smiled. That's ambitious. That's necessary. The board chairman looked at the other members. Silent communication passed between them. Then he nodded. The board approves the creation of this position. Unanimously. Ms. Wade, you'll start Monday. We'll work out the details of your responsibilities and budget, but you have carte blanche to build what's needed. I'd come into this building months ago being mocked for my cheap blazer. I was leaving as the architect of real change. On my last day in the old department before moving to my new office, I took a walk through the floor. People congratulated me, apologized for staying silent, thanked me for being brave. I passed Troy's former office. It had been cleaned out, his nameplate removed. The room was empty except for his desk and chair. I walked in and closed the door. Removed my gray blazer, the same $12 thrift store find he'd mocked in that meeting months ago. I folded it neatly and placed it on his chair. Reminder. Symbol. A final message to anyone who thought they could judge worth by appearance or price tags. I walked out wearing just my blouse, shoulders straight, head high. Past the cubicles where I'd spent 4 years being invisible. Past the conference room where I'd been humiliated. Past all of it. Tomorrow I'd start building something better. Systems that protected people instead of punishing them. Accountability that mattered. Real change. But today I paused at the elevator and looked back one last time. At that gray blazer sitting in an empty office where arrogance used to live. Turns out, I whispered to myself, cheap fabric can carry the weight of justice just fine. The elevator doors closed. And I never looked back again.